I'm going to be at every dispensary. I'm so excited to see, and I'm so excited that this market is going to be led by micro licensees. So we talked about one of the reasons this has taken longer is because we wanted to make sure that there was room for small players in this market. And one of the things that the Minnesota law did was to create a micro license, which means that you can grow up to 5,000 square feet of flowering canopy, manufacture about that same amount, and have one retail store.
Hey yo, we put free money where the mic is. He got it on lock like Rikers. Green rebates get you paid, so a lot of people like us. Money Talks Podcast, watch it on all your devices. Woo! All right, welcome back to the Money Talks Podcast. I am here with Jen, a name that was very popular in the 70s, but I guess isn't as much.
True. Yes, so I'm Jen Randolph Riza. We Jennifers have to diversify, so I'm a Jen. And I'm a lawyer turned consultant in Minnesota.
Awesome. So where are you born and raised?
I actually grew up in Missouri and came up here for college and fell in love with the Twin Cities.
Wow.
Minnesota is a great place to live, a great place to raise your kids, and now it's a great place to be in the cannabis industry.
How are people so happy in Minnesota when it's this cold? Because walking from the hotel to the convention center, I'm in a very bad mood. But everyone in Minnesota is so optimistic when it's this cold. How? Why are people so nice here?
First of all, it's so sunny. Come on, dude. It could be way worse. It could be snowing, blizzarding, ice, whatever. Second, I think we in Minnesota really appreciate the nice days that we have because we all lived through the cold together. Right. And so we're ready to embrace the good that we get. Finally, it's fun to have cozy nights smoking by the fire.
Wow. That's actually, you're more grateful when you have this many cold days. You're grateful for the good days, whereas in Los Angeles, when every day is a good day,
that's right.
You take everything for granted, and people are way sadder in Los Angeles.
That's right.
Than Minneapolis. It's
and
crazy.
They don't eat outside. Whereas when it's 45 and sunny here, we are eating outside.
You're shirt off, streaking.
And as cannabis people, we are session outside and loving it.
Love it. So tell me about your journey into cannabis, because it's a unique journey.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm a startup lawyer by training. I graduated from law school in 2007. I worked at a big firm, at a public company. But about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I decided I'm going to represent entrepreneurs in the cannabis industry because I have these skills in helping people set up and scale companies. And the Minnesota cannabis industry was finally going to be ready for needing lawyers with those skills, right? As opposed to, say, criminal defense lawyers who we've been relying on for many, many decades. I also love cannabis because I have a kid who was greatly helped by medical cannabis, gave them their life back, and I saw firsthand as a mom how difficult it was to figure out what kind of medicine would be helpful for them and to obtain it, even though I'm really good at paperwork, at jumping through hoops, at paying for things. And I wanted to make it easier and have people have access to the information that they need to know if they're on a similar journey, if medical cannabis might be helpful for them.
So how old was how long did it take for you to come to the conclusion that cannabis was the right thing for your son?
They got a diagnosis that was one of the few medical conditions that was allowed under Minnesota's very restrictive medical program. And there were not a lot of other good treatment options. And so that made me think, as an occasional cannabis user, somebody told the Minnesota legislature, this helped my kid for this condition. And so I think it's worth a try. And indeed, that from that very first try, helped a great deal. And so, I'm proud to say my kid is now a young adult, basically high all the time and doing great. So I'm here for that.
That's amazing. So your background as a lawyer, what made you want to be a lawyer in the first place and get into this crazy world? Because it's pretty emotionally taxing, isn't it? Is it? I have a cousin who's a lawyer and he's just 16 hours a day, doesn't have a life. So what made you decide this career path?
I was in the nonprofit world first, and we had our first baby. And we looked at each other and said, somebody needs to make some money in this house. And so I did a whole barrage of career testing, and they said that I should be a lawyer or a librarian. And so I went and became a lawyer. There are lots of different ways to be a lawyer. We actually are as specialized as doctors, but we're not allowed to. So, like, think about doctors, right? You wouldn't go to a cardiologist if you have a broken toe, right? Like, maybe they've learned a little bit about it in med school, but, like, it's not what they do, right? And it's also not what they want to be paid for. And so it's important when people look for lawyers to look for not just a lawyer, but actually somebody who has the specific applicable experience and skills that they need, either in their industry or ideally on the task at hand and their industry. Which can be a tall task to find that person sometimes.
Yeah, when people think about lawyer, they just think of the TV, like the court TV shows where someone's just standing up and screaming, objection, relevance, you know? What was like a day in the life for you as a lawyer?
Yeah, so I'm a transactional lawyer. I help people, or I was, I guess. Now I'm a consultant. We could talk about that in a minute. So I'm a recovering lawyer. But when I was practicing as a lawyer, I was a transactional lawyer. So helping people get their paperwork right, get their cap table set up, bring in investors, do complicated M&A deals. I never went to court from when I graduated law school until today. And I kind of want to hold that record because people think that lawyers are just what they see on TV, and we are not. Like, we transactional lawyers exist, we're just more boring, and so we don't get to have TV shows about us.
But just as important.
We're so helpful. And and I want to be helpful.
So you're the paperwork queen then. You could go through, you could read pages and pages and pages of contracts and know exactly like, hey, take this out. This looks kind of shady.
Well, contracts, but also really complicated regulatory schemes. So we're talking about statutes that are hundreds of pages long, then as interpreted by rules and as interpreted by frequently asked questions to your regulator, whatever. That's my expertise, is being able to turn that into actionable steps. Here's the landscape. How are we going to create a path forward through this landscape?
Nice. So what's it like reading 100 pages of like legal jargon? Does it drive you crazy, or do you actually enjoy it?
Well, it's a skill, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't enjoy it as much as figuring out how it applies to the entrepreneurs. That's the fun part. Right.
Is it kind of like solving a puzzle?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Interesting. So how does this, tell me about the transition from transition into cannabis and how your experience has been like a lawyer working with growers and working with, cannabis professionals, how that experience has been.
Yeah. So a significant part of my earlier legal experience had been working with much larger enterprises. I was in-house counsel at a public company, so I was in sophisticated boardroom discussions. When I was at the big firm, of course, they were charging me out at $600 an hour, so I was only working for people that had the money to pay that, right? And so with my law firm serving cannabis entrepreneurs, I had to really switch gears. I'm working with people who have never worked with lawyers, or who only think, as you said, that lawyers are people you call when the cops are at your door, or shit like that I don't do, right? And so there's a good bit of education, I think, about what I can do and what I can't do, and also education for me about the cannabis industry, about what it's meant for people to be underground for so long, because I really do want to help people from the legacy market move into the legal market if they want to, right? And help them figure out, again, the path to do that. But sometimes it's like we speak different languages about sort of what the world is and what is required.
Is there some code switching involved when you're, and how I feel like that's one of your superpowers is being just being able to communicate with any type of person.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I'm trying for sure. Yeah. And it helps that I'm really an educator at heart. I taught law school for 3 years also as part of this journey. And so I hope to lead with being a guide and having information for people, and also listening to them and helping them move from where they are to where they want to be.
Right. How long does it take for a cannabis professional that you're working with to finally really develop that trust with you and really feel like, okay, this woman is my ally, she's on my side? Is it instantaneous, or does it take a little bit of massaging?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I I am fortunate that now I have worked so hard I've done a lot of speaking and writing and everything, and people in Minnesota know who I am in general. And so that helps a lot, because it's true. There are lots of people, including lawyers, who don't really know what they're doing in this industry, who are just jumping in, who are talking a big game. And I respect. It's hard for people to figure out who they should trust with their money and their business, right? With their dreams.
Right.
Yeah.
So as kind of like a regulations expert, what's the scene like? What are some of the frustrations that some growers, like local growers in Minneapolis, Minnesota, are faced with?
Yeah. Well, it's been a super painful delay here, as you probably know. I'm sure you've been talking to people at the conference all week. It's disappointing that we were here at Lucky Leaf a year ago, and it feels like the industry is still, in many ways, in the same place. Nobody has licenses. Nobody is allowed to be growing legally, except for home growers and the tribes. So we can talk about both of those things, which are important pieces of the Minnesota market. People are anxious to get started, and that anxiety is in part rooted in the fact that it is expensive to wait and pivot and try to figure out a very uncertain landscape.
Right.
Yeah.
Why is it taking so long?
Wow, that's a big question.
I know.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like if we knew, then it wouldn't.
Okay, a couple reasons. One is, for better or for worse, Minnesota really likes to be well regulated. And so, for instance, when we think about, this is JENN law professor mode. Okay.
No, I love it. You're crushing it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
When we think about things like how Minnesota government works, we have open meeting laws at every stage of government that allow the public an unusual amount of access to the meeting minutes, to knowing what their government officials are doing, and to having comment periods and input on that, okay? We're fans of good government. It grew out of the progressive movement in the 1910s that is part of our ethos here, okay? But it also means that Minnesota government, by reflex, regulates everything too much, so much, okay? I think often too much, okay? We want to have really specific rules for every single thing, right? So our cities have licenses and permits for all sorts of activities that most states don't regulate in that way.
Like, what are some things that maybe don't need regulation that...
Oof. No, I'm not going to
Sorry,
bite on
we
that
don't-
one. Sorry, man. And I'm not so much thinking about cannabis right now, but just... I have represented and worked with a lot of small entrepreneurs in the past. I speak at a nonprofit called Women Venture, and I'm helping women entrepreneurs get set up. And they're often distressed to learn that, as a small hairstylist business or some kind of helping people with health problems, they have to go through all this registration rigmarole. And so I try to tell them, yes, that is part and parcel of being an entrepreneur in Minnesota, okay? We pay a good amount of taxes, but we get a lot for our taxes. We're highly regulated, but we get safe markets and clear rules. That's hopefully. So that's in an ideal world, the trade-off that we have made here, okay?
Right.
So we can argue about whether that's working, whether that was right. Okay, so when we go to cannabis, of course Minnesota was going to think that setting up a successful market meant a carefully regulated market with a regulator that is looking at every aspect and trying to do a really good job creating really good rules. And that has taken a really long time, right? Because we had to build the Office of Cannabis Management from scratch as a state. It was created by the bill that was passed in May 2023. And so they've been staffing up, they've been learning. A lot of them are not cannabis people over there, which is a heavy lift for them. So then another headwind in Minnesota has been that we didn't have a large medical market. I told you that we were one of the most restrictive medical statutes in the country. And so that meant we just didn't have a lot of people enrolled in the medical. The medical wasn't growing a lot of plants, et cetera. So, for instance, in Ohio, they got dispensaries open really quickly because they just allowed the medical to sell to adult use. Minnesota decided that wasn't an option for two reasons. One was supply. The other was we wanted to allow small players to enter the market. We didn't want to give the market away to the medical companies. And so that meant we had to go through this whole process, setting up the Office of Cannabis Management to create licenses that allow small entrepreneurs to apply, and then OCM has to review those licenses and see if they think they're the right people, and that's just taken forever.
Got it. But you think this delay it's still good intentioned?
I think fundamentally, yes.
Yeah.
I hear various conspiracy theory people.
Those people always exist.
They do, and I bet they'll
Sometimes
comment on
they're-
your podcast. So I'm trying to steel myself for that. Now having gone on and on.
Hey, if we get any comments on a podcast, it's a win, good or bad. When this delay period is over, like, how excited are you for like everyone to get their licenses and the market to really boom?
Oh man.
What's your life gonna look like when that happens? Is it just gonna be?
Well, personally, I'm going to be at every dispensary. I'm so excited to see, and I'm so excited that this market is going to be led by micro licensees. So we talked about one of the reasons this has taken longer is because we wanted to make sure that there was room for small players in this market. And one of the things that the Minnesota law did was to create a micro license, which means that you can grow up to 5,000 square feet of flowering canopy, manufacture about that same amount, and have one retail store. Okay, so it's a small, vertically integrated license. As opposed to the large licenses, cultivation, manufacturing, retail, cannot be vertically integrated. Okay, it's a bill that's trying to create a diversified, fractured market. Okay, that's partly why it takes so long.
Yeah.
Anyway, these micro licenses in the next round are not capped by statute, whereas the larger licenses are. And that means that the micro licensees are going to be the first ones to be able to open, both as growers and as retailers. And I'm so excited to see them start to roll out across Minnesota.
Love it. And do you grow your own cannabis? Are you a horticulturist yourself?
I am a gardener, and so it was easy for me to make the switch to growing cannabis. I have been a home grower since the first day that it was legal in Minnesota, which is August 1st, 2023.
Wow, you know the exact dates of everything. Your brain it's amazing watching your brain work in real time.
Thank you, I think.
No, your students are very lucky.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks. And my clients too, hopefully, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's so fun to home grow. Also, it's great to have some supply since we don't have dispensaries open yet. And as my grower clients told me before I started, I have learned a lot about the plant and about the industry as a home grower. For instance, the need for a cultivation facility to have the different, flower room, veg room, mother room, curing room, drying, sure. You can be told that before you grow, but once you're a home grower and you have to create those rooms in your own damn house with tents, you understand it to a greater level, and then you can start to see, okay, it would be hard for me to think about how to scale this up. I need to learn from people who've done that successfully in other states so that I can help my clients see that.
Love it. What kind of lighting do you use? Or what is your paint me a picture of your home grow?
Yeah, so I have a tent in the basement, just sort of your standard size tent. We are allowed in Minnesota to have 8 plants at a time, 4 of which can be flowering. And we can also grow another 8 plants if you have a medical cannabis patient who has delegated their right to grow to you.
Cool.
Which is a cool expansion to the law that Kayla Fearing got and Jess Hansen got through the legislature last year, because there's so many people that need medical cannabis, can't grow their own, and so you can delegate just one patient as a caregiver. So yeah, I have a small setup in my basement. In the summer I was trying to move things through in phases more, and that was fun. In the winter, I'm back in the basement, but I have been sprouting some seeds of both cannabis and vegetables on my radiator when it was 10 below, and that was pretty fun. So
Nice.
I've been talking about that on Instagram as well. I know lots of people are exploring growing their own food in these times because food is more expensive. And I gotta think, as people with grow setups in our basement, we are super well equipped to include some tomatoes or herbs or kale or whatever in there too.
Yeah, and so
So-
many. It's interesting how many people got into cannabis or growing cannabis, who started by growing tomatoes, growing vegetables, and they were an expert in that field, and then it was just like a natural transition. So.
That's right. That's right. But I also still meet other people who have only grown cannabis, and then they're like, could I grow other things? I'm like, damn, you've got the skills. You could totally do that, you know?
Were you surprised by how much energy it takes and like how much lighting it takes to run a successful grow, even if it's just a home grow?
These plants are hungry, but they give us a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, we gotta feed and water them and give them lots of light.
And do you use LEDs or what?
Yeah. I have a whole like classic. My colleague who I was working with at the time, who's an experienced home grower, got me all set up, and so that's why I don't know exactly like the brands of things that I have,
Cool.
because I was like, Matt, help me out, man.
Yeah.
And so he came over and set it up for me, and now I grow there, but I'm not exactly sure what it is. Like as far as brands, I know my lights are spider lights, which is like, I told him like I can't do the best. But
Yeah.
Like, something that'll carry me through as a home grower.
And these, you work with a lot of growers. Are you aware of like the rebate programs that exist? This isn't just a shameless plug. Like I'm curious,
I didn't even investigate it as a home grower, and maybe I should have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about like for your grower clients? Are they aware of the rebate programs?
Yes. One of the things I'm really excited about at Lucky Leaf is understanding the various service providers, rebate programs, other things that my clients need to have on their radar so that I can vet that stuff and make sure that they know about it when they get there.
Yes.
So I do a lot of understanding the different other people out in the market, and I'm excited to walk the floor at Lucky Leaf after I talk to you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So are you optimistic about the future, and like, do you see yourself in the cannabis space until you retire? It seems like you're kind of thriving right now. It seems like you kind of found your calling.
I'm so excited about this next phase in Minnesota. Right now, I am writing licenses for people, which I like and they need, but I'm really excited to get through licensing and actually get these businesses launched and scaling into successful and compliant businesses.
Nice.
That's what I'm really excited to do.
Yeah, it's so interesting because you were talking about earlier. There's so many different types of lawyers, but people who really like have never worked with a lawyer just think a lawyer is one person, and like if someone's accusing me of murder, I'm gonna go to you. But then you're like, I don't do that.
Not me, but I do know somebody, and so that actually
Yeah.
is a thing. If people need lawyers are used to helping the public find the right lawyer, because we all know that it's a problem for the public, because we are not allowed by ethical rules to say I am an expert in XYZ. So we have to say things like, I'm a family law lawyer. That means the person who does your divorce. But like, if people don't know that, code, then asking any lawyer, like, can you help me figure out what kind of lawyer I need? And can you help me find some people that do that? Is a thing that a lot of lawyers will do. And then they can send those referrals over.
Nice. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good to. What's like the biggest misconception people have about cannabis? I mean, you've worked with so many growers, so many professionals. What do you think? Yeah, the biggest misconception people who aren't like as well versed have.
I am surprised sometimes at how much stigma is still out there in the world. Because I forget, right? I hang out with cannabis people, I grow, I talk about it all day. There's such a need for education about what cannabis does and doesn't do. The public education during the war on drugs really skewed people's understanding about marijuana and whether it is scary and will kill you.
And it
right?
still sticks with people. Those commercials in the 80s.
That's right.
and 90s.
Your brain on drugs. We've all got it, like deep in there, right? And so I see, for instance,
it was sorry to cut you. It was
Yeah.
literally like, it felt like mind control.
That's right. That's right. And so I feel like we need to remember, as we build the cannabis industry, that there's still those people out there who are just starting at that square one of, oh, isn't this a dangerous thing? Isn't this a thing we would want to protect our families and our children, our community against? Right? And so therefore they're going to do things like adopt terrible zoning regulations to try to keep out the cannabis industry. We can argue with them, we can sue them, but we can also educate them.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't fight too much against it. Let's just like take a gentler approach is what you're saying. Yeah, and an educational approach. Because like something that we run into a lot is we do content, and it just still baffles me that cannabis related content still gets shadow banned.
That's
People
right.
are getting their Instagram. I mean, I have a friend who's lost his Instagram page I think 100 times.
Oh,
He's
God.
got his page deleted.
Yeah.
And he's a positive influence. Like he just gets high with celebrities and educates people on cannabis, has his
Yeah.
own strains. And it's just crazy that that's the content that everyone's like, no, the kids can't see it. But then you see other stuff, which I don't even want to touch on. So what do you like as a lawyer, what's your perspective on that? Like the fact that cannabis content is still being shadow banned and is still being like so regulated.
I think it's a shame. I think we have a lot bigger problems as a society and from a regulatory perspective. I think it's super interesting when we talk about stigma, the growth of the hemp-derived beverage segment, right? All of a sudden, because we're not using the word marijuana, and people are used to drinking something that makes them feel a little better, right? We've got wine moms becoming hemp-derived seltzer moms.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that kind of gentle, and we've got older people taking edibles to help them sleep because they need help sleeping, and it helps. And so we can build on those kind of gains to be like, that's right, this plant has lots of possible benefits. It's not as scary as Reagan made it out to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And
See-
also, we have safeguards, right? Yeah, it's not, whatever. Anything in the market is going to need to be, now this is back to my passion about consumer protection, right? Is going to need to have certain levels of control, labeling, testing, limits on, like we have 5 milligrams per serving for the hemp-derived beverages and stuff like that. I think Minnesota did a nice job of regulating the hemp-derived industry in a sort of medium way. And I would love to see the cannabis industry be able to be regulated less, down to more that level. Of course, labeling, testing, taxing, but not, a camera in every corner.
Yeah, come
Yeah.
on. So you just learned about green rebates last night when my trusty colleague Brett he met you, and now we're chatting. What do you think about us? Do you think are there areas that we should improve as like humans, or because you seem like a good reader? I guess I'm trying. I don't know where I'm going with this question, but do you think good people work for green rebates?
I'm really enjoying talking to you. I don't know that I can pass on the trustworthiness or character of every member of your team.
I think we got some good guys.
Okay. Yeah.
I've spent
Also,
some...
I love your business model, right?
Thank you.
As a business lawyer, I think it's super smart to make money by connecting people with programs that exist that will save them money, and then taking part of that as your business model, right? Like the idea that people could put up lights and pay zero out of pocket because there's already a pot of money somewhere else there, and then they get most of that and you get some of it. That's brilliant, man. And
How did you just perfectly articulate our mission statement? That was amazing.
This gentleman over here talked me through it last night. And as I said, I love to help people design businesses, right? And think through what's your competitive advantage? How are you going to scale this? What kind of tech stack do you need behind the scenes? This is the stuff that I do, right?
Yes.
So, yeah. So I walk into an ice cream shop and I think, how's this working?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's cool because like you said, our business model, we only get paid when growers get paid. We're not taking
that's a nice
money.
way to say it. I
Yeah.
like that. I like that.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about, or anything else that we didn't touch on? I think this has been a great convo.
It really has. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for spitting. I mean, you as a professor, as someone who's just passionate about education, I have a soft spot for people like you because my mom and my whole family is just educators.
Oh,
so
nice.
it's
Yeah.
it's in you, and I could really feel your passion for education. So thank you, and I hope you continue to educate people.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
This has been great.